Hi, everyone. You are watching The Self Connection with Ginny Brown and Kelly Pietro, where we have conversations with a group of ascended masters known as the multitude of the greater good.
Kelly is the question asker, and I channel the answers from the multitude of the greater good, which is a group of ascended masters residing in spirit. And they have access to information from the day of creation to the present time, plus whatever it is that each one has decided to accomplish in this lifetime. And they also, their goal is to help you become a better you on the whole, the totality of you from the day of creation to the present. So Kelly will ask the questions.
All righty. Happy Halloween, Ginny.
Oh, happy Halloween to
Yeah,
everyone. And thank you all for tuning in.
thanks, guys. Um, since it's Halloween, I thought we would cover some topics that tend to get brought up around Halloween time. So a little bit of exploration there. Some of these things we may have covered in other episodes a little bit, but to kind of group it all together, I thought would be fun for the holiday.
Okay.
Which, if you look at the history of the holiday, it doesn't have, I guess, if you look at like Samhain and the Celtic lore around that, it has to do with, honoring the dead. And then so fast forward to 2024 and we have like horror movies about ghosts and, poltergeists and stuff like that. So does it translate? I don't know. I guess with Halloween, I'm going along the lines of modern American culture around Halloween and not necessarily the traditional roots of it. Because I like when the multitude demystifies things for us and educates us on what's really going on here. So, you ready for that one, Ginny?
I'm ready. I don't know. I have no idea what's coming. So
Okay, so what can, well, I wonder if they have an opening message that they want to say or they want us to just ask questions.
it is important to understand that it is important to allow yourself the ability to accept the information, regardless of whether it is in a message or in a question. We prefer questions as there is a great deal of information here. As you can imagine, much has happened since the day of creation. However, a question will point us in the direction that you are interested in learning more about. Therefore, we would highly recommend that you go ahead and ask your questions.
They're so detailed. Like, they're not like, no, just go ask a question. They want to tell us why, and I appreciate that. Okay, thank you. What can the multitude share with us as to what is true about poltergeists?
It is important to understand that there are many definitions and variations of poltergeists. And in our estimation, it is only a label given to one's it is a label given to each one's fear of something. When one believes there is a problem, there's a problem, and allows the energy to flow in that area. If one allows oneself to understand that there is more to life than fear, one is able to move forward from that sense of self and being. And if one believes that there is a problem with one's understanding of who one is, one will allow all kinds of misinterpretation. In our estimation, a poltergeist plays on the fear of each person. If one believes there is a real being, there's a real being. However, in our estimation, it is usually an energy that is interested in completing a process that had been begun on the spiritual plane in order to complete a process on the physical plane. And when one allows the spiritual interpretation to become part of who one is on the physical plane, one is able to heal it beautifully. However, when one believes that there is a problem, the agreement cannot be completed, as one becomes quite fearful of one's own agreement. It is important to understand it is not a detriment to one's being. It is only a detriment if one believes it is a detriment. Therefore, we would highly recommend that one understand if it is that one is open and allowing to the energy of love, one will receive love. If one is open and allowing to the energy of fear, one will receive fear. And if one is able to move forward in that love of self of another, one will heal the issue or complete the process quite beautifully. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Oh, I can't wait to listen back on that one because I went off to my interpretation as you kept channeling. So I'm sure I have follow-up questions, but I don't. I'm gonna leave it.
Okay.
Ginny and I both have colds, everyone, so excuse us. We're chomping on cough drops and
I usually do anyway, so.
yeah. It's been a month now, so I guess I'm usually doing it too now. Okay, so I mean, I'm gonna stay on topic, but I'm not gonna do a follow-up question on that, but so then what can they share about the truth about exorcists?
We would like you to understand that an exorcist is the name of someone who believes that he or she is far more powerful than spirit. It is important to understand spirit is spirit. Spirit is an energy. Therefore, an energy can be requested to become a part of or to be banished and asked to leave. An exorcist believes that he or she has the power over another in order to banish that which is unwanted. In our estimation, only a person involved in the situation can ask the spirit to leave. There is a great deal of fear enhanced in an exorcist. If one believes one is required, one is it's like uneasy with one's own self, with one's own the word is insecurity. One is insecure in one's own being of self and cannot allow oneself to complete the process on one's own. However, when one believes an exorcist is required, one has far less confidence in themselves than is required. An exorcist is only another person, and the other person does not have the ability to regulate who or what you want, need, or understand. Do not be concerned.
Okay, that's interesting. I am gonna do a follow-up on that one. So, like, whenever I hear about, I don't watch these scary movies because I just can't. It's too much for me. But I can listen to podcasts that talk about them. And I love the Lights Out podcast, and I just listened to one when they were talking about, an exorcism. And the way it's described, which, we have to rely on someone else's account, so who knows if it's true, is like the person who is possessed, let's say, it's like they're almost gone, or they're not gone, but like the presence of the evil is more present than the personality of the body it's taken over. And so to piggyback on what the multitude just said, is it true then that as the exorcist is performing the exorcism, that part of the person who's afflicted, is it like their soul recognizes someone is here to help and they step into the allowing of that help? Or does it happen more in the physical realm where the individual knows that like a priest is there and is doing this ritual and they step into the allowing? That is kind of like the key, because if they're the only ones who can do it, right? If they're the only ones who have the power to banish, then it must be like a decision that they make then in that moment. Can they just expand on the mechanics of that with a better understanding of that?
While you were talking, what I got was acceptance of help. It is a matter of understanding that each one comes to the earth plane in regard to expanding each one's own self. And when one believes one is incompetent in order to allow oneself to complete a process, one allows help. And if it is that one allows help from such a state of insecurity as to, it's like be gone, as you put it, to be out of themselves, one is able to allow oneself to handle oneself from the spiritual realm. Therefore, it is the spiritual realm that is helping them rather than the exorcists themselves. It is important to understand that each one on the earth plane is very much in touch with one's own self and spirit, whether they know it, believe it, or understand it. It is important to understand that each one comes to the earth plane in connection with themselves in the spiritual plane. Therefore, we would highly recommend that you allow each one to allow themselves, allow each one to understand who they are, where they are, and when they are. And when it is that they believe they need the help of another that is required in such a way, it is important that they allow it. However, what they are allowing essentially is themselves, their own healing, their own allowing with the help of another. In our estimation, it is a matter of each one becoming in connection with each one's own self. And sometimes it requires each one's own ego self to step aside. Therefore, we would highly recommend that one understand it is one's own self in spirit on the earth plane and the allowing of the connection in order to allow the healing, not the other person doing the healing, as that is an impossibility.
I think that's an empowering message. But certainly like to allow help,
Right.
obviously, right? Okay, so a lot of times when you hear about these things, there's like you go into the story and you're like, well, they were playing with a Ouija board. So, and I know for me, I'm like, I feel like there's this way to play with a Ouija board that would result in something like this, maybe, and there's probably other ways to interact with something like that that could produce a different result. So, what can the multitude share with us about maybe advice, whether it's go ahead and play with it, don't play with it? What's the best practice? What do they have to say about Ouija boards?
It is important to understand that a Ouija board is just a board. It's like it carries no significance other than what one places upon it. In our estimation, if one believes it is a possibility that the Ouija board is obsessed or possessed or of a negative nature, it will bring forth a negative nature. If one understands it is just a board asking for energy to help move whatever you call that thing, move the spindle or whatever.
The Blanche hat. It's
What?
called a Blanche hat, I think.
Oh, you can tell how familiar I am with Ouija boards.
Yeah, yeah. I stay away from them, honestly, but yeah.
It is important to understand that it is the energy that is moving, whether or not it's a positive or a negative energy, is based upon the thought processes of the person working with the energy. However, we can tell you there is a connection. And if one connects with oneself, there is no problem. If one allows oneself to connect with that which is not amenable to oneself, it can be a problem, but it is definitely not a, it's like not a negative in so much as it is detrimental to one's being. Do not be concerned.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Okay, well, one follow-up question. They said the board itself has no power unless you assign whatever you assign to it. Does the
right.
collective understanding, when I say collective, I mean like multiple people believing that this board can do something, does that further contribute to the assigned power?
It is important to understand that each one is responsible for each one's own self. If one allows the collective energy to take charge, one is not in charge of one's own self and one's own power. Therefore, there is a possibility that the collective energy can affect the individual's experience. However, it does not affect the board, so to speak, overall. Do not be concerned.
Love it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stay on the Halloween theme, and hopefully these ones are a little bit more fun than they are dark. Although
Okay.
I think it's good that they kind of explain what's going on there because people always wonder. Okay, what is true about vampires?
It is important to understand a vampire is a figment of someone's imagination.
Okay, so there's not really blood-sucking things out there.
In our estimation, it is an impossibility.
I guess, and they're talking about, I'm sure there's people who do weird things out there, but you know, I'm talking about like the guy with the fangs, or not just a guy, gal, whoever, and they suck blood and they turn, right, like that, you always see that in the movies, so, okay, and
It is important to understand that there are many who believe that there are true entities called vampires. However, we can tell you it is not of one's physical experience. It is a mental, like impoverishment. It is a mental disability of being.
okay, thank you. My husband's out there leaf blowing, so I'm trying to text him to go on the other side of the house. Hopefully it's not coming through on the video. I'm just going on mute, so.
I don't hear it.
Okay, what is true about werewolves?
It is important to understand they are in the same category as vampires.
Simple, simple. Okay, well, what about, what is true about Bigfoot? Did we talk about this once before? I don't remember.
I don't know. I don't think so. Bigfoot is that which one assigns to something that is unbeknownst to them. If there is an animal or a figure of someone's imagination that they cannot quite comprehend, they will label it Bigfoot. There are those beings on the earth plane that allow themselves to be, it's like carried away in such a manner as to believe any unknown species is Bigfoot. However, we can tell you there are those things that are considered a Bigfoot. However, they are not necessarily on the earth plane. Interesting.
Okay, so Bigfoot is sort of real. I think when people talk about it, they think about him moving through dimensions, like he's seen and then he's not, because he's a figure, or maybe I guess a spiritual figure. I don't know, like an energetic figure, or he exists on another plane that's somehow overlaid with the earth plane. Can they?
It is important to understand there is no such thing. There are those who are able to see of a different dimension and those who are totally ensconced in 3D, third dimension. We can tell you those in the third dimension who are able to momentarily expand themselves and allow themselves a glimpse of a higher dimension will be able to see differently. Therefore, they allow the fear to take over and call it a Bigfoot or an anomaly of some sort. However, we can tell you there are those that go back and forth between third dimension and another dimension. Therefore, they believe it is a negative in their life. However, it is just them being them, and they are able to move through dimensions differently than most. In our estimation, it is not a fearful experience. It is just an experience. Do not be concerned. All is love.
All right, setting the record straight today.
Uh,
May have asked this one once before too, but I like the idea of it all being in one episode. What is true about the Loch Ness monster?
it is important to understand that there is there is such an animal, one might say, as the Loch Ness monster. However, all of the theories ascribed to it are not of a nature that is available on the earth plane. There are those who are, again, able to see in different dimensions, as this Loch Ness monster, so to speak, or so-called, is only a figment of those on the earth plane. However, it is a reality to those who can see into a different dimension. In our estimation, it is not of the earth plane. It is not on the earth plane. It is a dimensional being that those who are ascribed to moving themselves forward differently are able to experience. Do not be concerned.
Kind of similar to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Okay. We may have talked about this once before, but again, what is true about fairies?
It is important to understand there are those little beings known as fairies. And again, they are not of the earth plane. They are like imaginary beings, one might say, on the earth plane. However, their availability of the energy on another level of being is quite real. We can tell you there are those fairies who allow themselves to be seen, and those who work like undercover. We can tell you there are many different types of fairies, and many of them are in the spirit world. And there again are those who can allow themselves the ability to experience a different dimension now and then. However, they are not of the earth plane. They are sometimes able to be seen on the earth plane. However, they are a different dimension completely. Do not be concerned. I can't hear you.
Forgot I put myself on mute, sorry.
All
Okay, last one,
right.
unless you want to add to it.
You know,
What is
uh,
true about giants?
giants. It is important to understand there are those who are very much able to experience themselves in many dimensions. And sometimes those dimensions will remain in a higher level and sometimes in a lower level. Therefore, one may seem very tall, very large, or one may seem very small. In our estimation, it does not matter. It is, once again, of those who are able to see into different dimensions. That is all.
All right, simple. Okay, does the multitude have anything else they would like to expand upon when it comes to Halloween culture?
It is important to understand. It is very much fun for many people. There is very much involved in experiencing the joys and the depths of Halloween. However, 99% of the stories associated with Halloween are those that are made up by others and not true at all. In our estimation, Halloween is a fun time, and we would highly recommend that each one enjoy that time, as there are many ways of experiencing a fun Halloween, and we offer our joy and love to each one in their experience. Do not be concerned, all is love.
I love it. I mean, I
Uh,
love Halloween. It's so much fun
cheers, yeah.
to dress up and be someone you normally wouldn't be, or just get together with friends, and I love seeing the trick-or-treaters in their costumes.
So I do have a question. It just came.
Yeah,
What about witches and how they become associated with Halloween and why they're perceived as such negative uh, beings or entities of being? It is important to understand, my dear, there are those that are associated with goodness and those associated with negativity. It is all how one aspires to believe who one is. In our estimation, a witch has become associated with Halloween as Halloween has become associated with scariness and I guess that's the only word I could think of, is scariness
evil, like evil spirits. I think that's an association now.
and negativity. Um, Halloween has become associated with uh, fear, negativity, and it is applied to that which one does not know. Therefore, one cannot know who one associates with and calls them witches. One believes one is of a significant spiritual ability that is an impossibility. Therefore, each one moves oneself forward in such a way as to believe that the impossibility of being is a negative, when in fact it is the ability of the person who is able to expand themselves on a higher and greater level, therefore becoming an anomaly or a negative to someone who cannot understand that those types of things are possible. In our estimation, it is important that you understand that you might be ascribed as a witch. Either one of you may be ascribed as a witch, as your abilities are quite appropriate to who you are. However, there are those who cannot believe it to be a possibility. Therefore, they disdain all as what they call witches or associate with witches. Therefore, you become a negative. There are those who know that what you do is quite a possibility. Therefore, they are open and joyous to your abilities of life, and you are not ascribed to as a witch. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Yeah, it's funny, I was like, do I put witches in here? And I mean, because I've been called a witch.
Sure.
As an herbalist and an energy worker, you're getting thrown in that cauldron.
Yeah.
And even going to herb school, our teacher would call us witches, and I'm like, wait, hang on a second, what? Like, because growing up, that term carried a certain, you know,
Negative aspect to it.
yeah. And so I really have deeply dove into the history of that term, where it comes from, why it's used, and how it is used in so many different ways, and how the history of the Inquisitions, uh, to call someone a witch, you didn't have to be an herbalist, you didn't have to be an energy worker, and you didn't have to be woman. It could be that you just fell outside of societal norms.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
living in a time like the Puritans, and even before the states were settled over in Europe, um, if you weren't subscribing to the local and the most prevalent beliefs of the time, or societal expectations of the time, you'd be called a witch. And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's such a dark, dark history. We could probably do a whole episode on that. And I love what the multitude said about it. Um, but it's interesting too to watch modern people. Actually, there's a lot of like modern herbalists and energy workers and Wiccans and pagans who want to reclaim that term
Yeah.
and wear it with pride, um, because they recognize that perhaps if they were living in a different time doing what they were doing, they would be branded a witch. Um, but historically, you didn't have to be an herbalist or an energy worker, but certainly if you were
Yeah.
probably a witch. It's just like a disparaging slur of a term to give to someone who you don't want around in your society. Ugh.
Yeah. Or if maybe to take it in another direction, maybe you were deemed a witch in a past life, and then you have those associations in this lifetime. So,
Oh, I already know that. I feel it.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think maybe that's why I love Halloween, because it's like, oh, the witches embrace somehow, you
Yeah.
know?
Or, like fear, sometimes a lot of fear from the consequences of having been known as a witch, even if you weren't.
Yeah,
So I brought a lot of that fear with me to be healed. So I'm working through that. But there's a lot of associations with witches, a
yeah.
lot of feelings, a lot of fear.
I think I've worked through a lot of personal stuff with that term, like, because
Yeah.
I'll have people call me that, and I'm like, I can feel the visceral, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be murdered. What do you think that means? And I'm like, why are you calling me that?
Right.
Um, but and so like I have a hard time. I don't claim that I don't claim to be a witch, but certainly, they're one of my friends goes, well, if the shoe fits. Well, but I don't,
Yeah.
anyway,
I wouldn't call you a witch, Kelly.
yeah, I mean, I mean, I guess though, in modern terms, I fit all the bills, but yeah, I think there's too many wounds around that word for me to say that.
It would depend on how open people are into accepting the gifts that we bring and the experiences that we have in order to use 99% of the time in a positive way and helping other people. But if you're not open to the energetic abilities or the spiritual abilities of someone, you will call them all kinds of derogatory names. So,
Well, yeah, and I think of that often because some of my more like devoutly religious Christian friends like think that this is the work of the devil, you know. I'm
yeah,
like, so basically, like, you would have branded Jesus a witch if he were around today for what he was doing, you know? It's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy, but I'm really glad well, I want to say we've moved on, but there are still cultures who are persecuting people in
yeah,
this manner. So, um, I think worldwide we've come a significant way, but there's still work to do in other countries. We live in a pretty free country, but certainly there's still social ramifications, you know, depending on where you live and what the culture is. There's still people who they may not be getting killed for it, but they might be socially isolated or it still happens. It's
yeah,
judgment, you know, it's just judgment.
true. Yeah. So, do you have any more Halloween questions?
I don't think I do, Ginny. Do you have any more?
No, I just had that one. Which one? So,
Yeah. Well, maybe they can debunk flying on brooms. Is this a true possibility?
it is important to understand that it is a figment of someone's imagination, and it is quite fun indeed. We highly recommend that you try it as you allow yourself the imaginatory drive or ride on the broom. It can be quite exhilarating. Do
I
not
will
be concerned.
I will go to bed tonight dreaming of flying across the full moon on it. I don't even think it's a full moon tonight on my broomstick.
There
I
is
do,
the
I do have a broomstick that I made in Salem. I guess, you know, can't get more witchy than that, but
There is the possibility, however, that one equates one's own sleep experiences as flying on a broom, as there are those experiences where those who are able and willing are allowing themselves to experience, and it's like it's called an out-of-body experience on the earth plane. However, it is you allowing yourself to experience differently, therefore allowing yourself the ability to move around differently during sleep and allowing your physical self the ability to rest while your spiritual self is exploring. Do not be concerned, all is love.
is that the same as astral projection or not really?
Um, in my opinion, it's not astral. Well, astral projection, it could be. It could be.
Okay.
In our estimation, my dear, it is one and the same.
Oh, okay. Which in a previous episode they did not recommend. But it is a possibility is what they're saying here. So
Well, I don't remember discussing that in a previous. Well, that's not to say that I remember everything that I said that they say. So
yeah.
we
Yeah,
could.
we did an episode where we asked or I asked about astral projection and they were like, you know, we don't recommend it. You're here to be on the earth plane kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Proof
Yeah.
that Ginny really gets out of the way. She doesn't even remember we talk about these. Yeah.
I can remember it for like 5 seconds and then it's gone.
Yeah, funny. Well, that was a fun episode, Ginny.
Yeah. It was different. It was interesting. It
Yeah, I'm
was
sure.
different. Halloween.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get some follow-up questions. So if people have follow-up questions and they want to send them to us, go to my website, www.themindfulherbalist.com. There's a link to the self connection, and at the bottom of the page, there's a form you can submit your own questions. Just do one question at a time if that's okay. And if you love Ginny's work and you're interested in getting personal answers to your personal questions, she is available for one-on-ones. What's your website, Ginny?
It's jennybrown.net, or you can email me at ginny@jennybrown.net. I will get that. So
Awesome.
looking forward to hearing from you. And
Yes,
Kelly is also available, and she is also giving you her website, so you can go there and see what she has to offer and contact her that way.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah.
All
All right.
right. Thanks everyone for tuning in for this Halloween special. Hope you guys have a happy Halloween. And thanks for listening to Self Connection.
Yes, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ginny. Thanks, Multitude.
All right. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Bye.